Phillip and Spark Media. Welcome to you, Missy.
Hey, Marnie. So excited about this event that you're hosting to get people kicked off and inspired for this new year.
We have had quite the last 2 years, and I don't really foresee that things are just going to get so simple for us going forward. I'm not really anticipating that. But what I do know is that God is going with us forward, and that's all that matters.
Amen, sister.
Yeah. So, Spark Media, for those of you who do not know, Misty's got this organization that helps people get the word out about God and good news and the messages that he's put in women's hearts. So, Misty, maybe as we get going here, and I'm going to pick your brain about some fun stuff that you've done with God through the years, but start by just explaining what Spark is, who it's for, how somebody could get involved.
Yeah. So Spark is for Christian podcasters. We started as a conference and then we turned into a community with a training library. I started doing one-on-one consulting with people to help them launch their podcast, and it just keeps growing. So as I see the needs, I pray, I ask God. So then we created a podcast network to help monetize shows for the people who are creating. And then we launched a magazine this past year to help represent people in the podcast industry. We want Christian podcasting to be seen as something that is serious and important, and just as important as any other podcast. But it's also a great way for our podcasters who are writers. Writing, speaking, and podcasting is kind of a trifecta. So it gives them a place to have their work published, but it also just encourages these encouragers who are encouraging other people, right? So we have to be filled up too so that we can pour out.
Yeah. And I love that your focus is podcasting. So there's a lot of gals who have a book and are a speaker, but they've been thinking about this podcasting angle, but don't know really where to begin. And you guys have a lot of training available in your program to help even identify the technical stuff as well as the content creation and monetization and all that.
Yeah. I mean, we're everything from the idea phase to launch to growth to monetization and production and everything in between.
And you love to focus on God doing it through us instead of us doing it just by ourselves, out
Absolutely.
there plugging
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. And we want to do it in community because
Right.
we believe that that's important, but we also want to help produce shows that are biblically sound, because there's a lot of negative and a lot of bad narratives out in the world. And so we want to make sure that we are helping people who have a God-given message to get that message out into the world. And the amazing thing about podcasting is that you literally can reach people all around the world. So I think the last time I checked, my podcast, By His Grace, was in over 100 countries. And in the top 10, one of the top 10 countries on the list is India, because we're part of an Indian platform. And there's a lot of people that are not believers there. So to me, that is just an incredible opportunity for us to share the gospel and messages of hope and to reach people globally.
Before we came live, you were talking, I asked you about times that you'd had to really step out in faith, and you were talking about your first conference. Tell us the story about that. And maybe just, I guess I want to encourage you guys that are listening to listen for the part that this wasn't just so easy. Listen for that part.
Right. So actually, in October of 2019, I had already, in 2019, I had launched The Struggle is Real and the By His Grace podcast. So, after you write a book, everybody wants to know, when's your next book coming out? What are you doing next? And so I was working on a book. It wasn't working. I went to God in prayer and I asked him, what is it that you want me to do? So first of all, I just want to tell anybody who's listening, if you don't know what to do, ask God, because he has a purpose and a plan for your life. So
No.
that's the first step. So when I prayed, I felt him say podcast conference. And I went, what? A podcast conference? And then I realized, I went, there is no Christian podcast conference. There are great writing conferences and
Mhm.
speaking conferences, and they might talk about podcasting, but there's some unique challenges for podcasters. And so I wanted to bring the best of what was happening in the industry to Christian podcasters. And so we did 3 weeks before the world shut down. So at the conference, everybody's hugging. It's the end of February 2020. It's like amazing. My
Um,
friend's like, you need to prepare to have 400 people here next year because this is going to be so incredible. And a few weeks later, the world completely was locked down. And I had to rethink everything that God had called me to do. Am I still supposed to do a conference? What is this going to look like? So we shifted and did a couple of virtual events. But people in it being in person is my thing. I just there's something this is wonderful, and us doing this virtually is amazing, and I'm so glad we have the technology. But I think that there's something another element that happens, the synergy that can be created when we're in a room together and there's a lot of people, and I can introduce you to someone and you can introduce me to someone, and we just never know what God can do with all of that. So yeah, we started Spark, and then I was just like a lot of people in 2020. It was we had to shift and figure out now how are we going to do things. So that was probably the biggest challenge, and what I've learned through all of that is um, just to have freedom and flexibility, and got to keep that faith strong, because things don't always look the way we think they are going to look, right? God sometimes just gives us enough light to take the next step, or he
Mhm.
plants the seed in our heart for the dream that he has for us. um, but we don't see the big picture. And I was actually talking to somebody about this yesterday, because I said, I think sometimes if we saw the whole picture, if we saw how difficult it might be or the challenges that we would face, would we still say yes? And so, because it's not always a straight line from A to B, right? There's a lot of twists and turns and challenges, especially in the days that we are living. But I love what you said earlier. But God is here. He goes. He's before us, and He goes
Mhm.
before us, and He's with us.
Hmm. I love that. I know in 2022, since I host womenspeakers.com, and every day was busy matching leads and connecting with new speakers and new planners and all that. And then all the planners lost their shirts and all the speakers lost their gigs. And I was sitting in front of a very quiet computer screen going, what do we do now? And because it was indefinite, right?
Yeah.
I was like, God, you're just going to have to show me. And what I started doing is I always ask him for direction in the morning, but I started getting really like, because I did not know what to do today at all. I didn't have any appointments. I didn't have anything to do. And so I would ask him every morning, what are we going to do today? And it became like this kind of, this amazingly curious type of a feeling where I was just so curious what we were going to do today. And God just continued to work, and he did his own thing, right? He did his own thing in 2021. And he always does his own thing. But when you have a plan and your plan is disrupted, it sometimes takes you down. And I'm just going to use an illustration from observing people in ministry over 2020. Some people in ministry, literally, it was like there was an earthquake. Okay. We all felt it, right? It was like the whole earth
Yeah.
shook and our whole world, some of our worlds literally crumbled to the ground. Others just were shaken very badly. But some leaders, they just went right back out and just were like, the earthquake is still quaking, but I'm going to trust God. And other leaders literally are still to this day standing under the door jamb, waiting for the earth to quit shaking. And I just don't think it's going to stop. I don't think that all of a sudden things are going to get really smooth and perfect for us. I think that isn't really what it's about. I think it's about trusting God for what he wants to do now while the earth shakes or while the flood comes or whatever in our situation. And maybe, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a friend early on that in the pandemic who we were talking and really encouraged me. Now is the time to double down,
Yeah.
especially because there were so many people who could not go to church. I have a friend who came up with this slogan, podcasts are the new pulpit, because for many, that was the only church that they could
Right.
get. For small churches that
Yeah.
didn't already have a tech team and the ability to do these things. Um, and so we started the online conference that we did like shortly after our main conference,
Mm.
and then we went through the summer, and the summer got just, it was really rough between all of the racial tensions
Right.
and the election and just
Mm.
so many different things,
Mhm.
um, that I put a virtual event together in about a month, and
Wow.
I did it the week of the election. I like did it on election day because I saw all these people who were creating content to encourage other people, but they were just like, it was heavy and it was hard and they didn't know what to post on social media.
Mhm.
And I was like, as long as we are here, God has a purpose for us and
Mhm.
we need to be busy about that work. And
Mhm.
so I didn't care how many people showed up. I was like, "We're just gonna do this. We're gonna do it on election day, because no matter what happens with the election, like, the
God
world is still
is in
spinning." That's
control.
right.
Yes.
That's right. He is. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it ended up being just a very spiritual
Mhm.
time because we
Mm.
did praise and worship and, started with just an encouraging mission, just keep going even when it's hard, because God is in control.
Yeah. Well, I know that, that whole season of time was so intense. I did a series, what is that called? I wanna say collaboration, but it's reconciliation,
Yeah.
brought on some of our beautiful Black gals to help me with that, and then we did a series on Christian Women Vote because, what I was hearing from a lot of people is, "I'm not voting, I'm not voting, I'm not voting, I'm not voting," or, "I don't know who to vote for, I can't decide here," and so I thought what I'll do is just I'll do a series on Christian Women Vote and help. It was bipartisan, and it was just helping them to understand that voting in the United States, what a privilege. I mean, people from all over the world that I know, they would give anything to be able to live here and vote and not have
Absolutely.
violence and not have, I mean, to get to actually vote. And however you feel about that right now while I'm speaking, just give that to Jesus. But what the point I wanted to make was that things don't always go like we plan. And
That's right.
as I did that series, I was actually banned from Twitter. And I was banned from Twitter until 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
I know.
Well, and I
You
think
don't
we'll
know, you don't know how it's gonna turn out. All you do is
yeah.
just follow Jesus,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that happening with a lot of different
Mhm.
people, being deplatformed. And I think that we need to be prepared for that too in our ministries. Like, how will we continue to work if we are shut down from a channel or something? And so I'm excited to see that there are some new avenues being created, um, and yeah, so yeah,
I think for me, because it was pretty intense for me from the summer all the way past January 6th for me, was very intense of that year. And what I learned was that I came down to, even if I'm stuck in a pit and I've got nothing, I still have a ministry because I can still pray.
that's right.
So, like, what we're here to do, this weekend, what we're doing is we're saying, if God's given you a vision, run with it. But none of us know how much time we have to be freedom of speech here in our country, how much time we have to be alive on planet Earth. We don't have any guarantees about any of this. And God has given us such beautiful avenues to share his word with others. And we need to just be courageous and step out and do it, not out of fear at all, but just in faithfulness to what God has given us. So when you are talking to someone who's thinking about doing a podcast, but just like, I want to do one, but I just don't think I can, or I don't know. What is your word to her? She feels like God's calling her, but she's really holding back.
Yeah. So, first of all, just press into Him and seek Him. One of the things God impressed upon my heart yesterday was the last 2 years have been really hard, but we need to dream again. We need to seek Him for what He wants us to do. And so, once you have that clarity for your mission and vision, and you know that you're supposed to do it, there are tons of resources out there to help you, to guide you, to direct you. You can outsource things. So there's a lot of women I work with who do not want to do the technical part. And so my son started a podcast production company to help them with that. And so
God
that's
bless you.
been, yeah, it's been a really fun journey. But there are a lot of people out there who would be happy to link arms with you, to help you to get your message out. And that's probably what I would say is just get plugged in with a group like the ladies in Christian Women Speakers. There's so many great organizations out there, and just lock arms with them and just do what God has called you to do. You don't have to have it all figured out. Um, if you just keep
Yeah.
stepping, right? Just keep stepping. And at Spark, we've got lots of resources to help the podcaster, from a free blog to a quarterly free meetup that we do. We try to create a lot of both free and paid opportunities to work with people, because we believe in Christian podcasting so much, and we really want to help you get your message out. So
Well, it is such an amazing, timely ministry to get involved in, is podcasting, because everybody's got their phones, and even around the world, you can access podcasts, and it's just so beautiful. One of the things that was bubbling to the surface of my mind, as you were talking there, was this not being sure whether you're ready to step out yet, but stepping out, do something, step in the right direction, I guess is what I was thinking. And I was thinking of my sister, my oldest sister. She was married 17 years before they had their first child, but she
wow.
actually has 4 kids in heaven from miscarriage or stillbirths. And so what she would do is she would say, I'm going to behave today as if I knew for sure that God was going to give me a baby, a live baby.
Yeah.
And she would eat right, she would exercise, and she would do what she would do if she knew for sure that God was going to give her a live baby. And 17 years later, he did.
Yeah.
You have a dream in your heart to maybe start a podcast or write a book or be a speaker or whatever it is. And you don't have to worry about the timing. God's got the timing. And there may be many miscarried launches on the way, or stillbirths where you actually launched and it died. And, it doesn't matter about that. My heart goes out to you because I feel that. But at the same time, what matters is that if God puts a purpose or a direction in your heart, that you go forward by faith and you keep stepping out and you keep doing the next thing he puts in your heart to do. How did
Y-
you get
Yeah.
into podcasting?
Yeah, even if you have to do it afraid.
Oh, right.
So yeah, so I started speaking first, and then I
Mhm.
was called to write The Struggle is Real, but So is God. And that was a whole thing, because I didn't realize it was going to take me 3 years while I was still homeschooling my kids,
Right.
and just the
Right.
spiritual warfare when I stepped out
Mhm.
to really to do ministry that I experienced, and everything that went along with that. But then I knew that God wanted me to self-publish, because I was getting
Mhm.
rejected time after time after time, because no one knew me. They didn't know
Right.
if I was sound theologically, or it wasn't the time. But I heard God in my spirit say, self-publish, you need to get this message out. Well,
Mhm.
you know why? Because in 2020 the whole world was in a struggle, and the struggle is real is all about overcoming in Christ. And
Mhm.
that's what the whole Bible study is about. And that's how I got into podcasting. My family had been trying to talk to me about podcasting for years, and I kept going, no, no, no.
Mhm.
They even bought me a mic, and I would move it around my house. And so I know that fear that can, not having it all figured out, not knowing all the things to do. And that's why I say, if you feel God calling you to start a podcast, there is no better time than now. And I just want to give a quick stat. So there were a couple of million podcasts that were started in the pandemic, but not everyone stuck with it. And so they're not active. There's only about, I think, less than a million, so somewhere around 800,000 active podcasts, okay?
Mhm.
But if you compare that to the number of active blogs, like there's over 50 million blogs in the world. And so I think it's still a great time to get into podcasting and to use that either on its own or as an accompaniment to
Right.
your writing and speaking.
Right. I love that. I love that. So have you had a false start, like where you started something and it just didn't really pan out? It's still maybe on the sideboard or later it came around. Do you have anything that has happened to you like that?
I think probably with the struggle is real, like I was just talking about
Yeah.
that. I thought God gave me, I mean, I knew that God had given me this Bible study and I worked really hard and I thought for sure it's going to just get published. This is going to be
Right.
great. I
Right.
had no idea what I didn't know.
Mhm.
And I think that was just feeling the rejection of so many people, like being excited about my proposal out of kindness, taking it, but not really interested in me and then not hearing back. But I'll tell you one thing I did. There was a woman who was an editor at Lifeway at the time, and I hounded that woman. I was like, tell me all the things I need to do, just like until she finally got back to me and she sent me this long email list of all
Mhm.
these things to do, attend like
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
all the steps that I needed to take, and that's what I
Mhm.
needed. And so what I thought was
Mhm.
a devastation, I just pressed in and kept going and kept going
Right.
after her. And finally, she just gave me all these things to do, hone your craft while you're building your platform and all these different just little tips. But it was exactly what I needed. But if I hadn't have pressed on, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten that. So
I love that. And that's kind of what you do now for podcasters is that provide that kind of help. How do I get started? What do I need to do like that? And I love that. I love that. So if you guys are considering starting a podcast, if you already have one, want some support, want some connections with other podcasters, want some tips and strategies, Spark Media is the place to be. You guys have a conference coming up here very soon.
yeah, so we partnered with the NRB last year when it was kind of crazy and we weren't sure. And that partnership worked out so well. They invited us to come back. So we're hosting a pre conference event to the National Religious Broadcasting Convention. And the beautiful thing about that is we're locking arms for the purpose of mission and vision of,
Mhm.
broadcasting, podcasting, radio, religious
Mhm.
freedom. It's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful.
And
Mhm.
so that's going to be March 7th and 8th at the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville. And
Fun.
so we'll have tickets on sale for about another month and then we've got to wrap things up. And if there's anybody here that is already podcasting, what you might want to be aware of is that we do a Spark Media Award ceremony every year because I believe that it is so important to honor the work that people are doing. And so you can sign up for that even if you can't make it to the conference. So,
Nice.
yeah.
So cool. So tell me about your hat.
Oh, well, you know what? The fun thing about my hat is I've always been a hat girl. And the other day somebody said, oh my gosh, I knew exactly that it was you because of your hat. And so it's become kind of a brand thing, because if we can be consistent with our branding, it helps for people to know. So the hat has become a branding thing for me.
Mhm.
So
Where'd the name Spark come from?
yeah, that came from God.
Yeah.
So when he called me to the conference, I sat down with a journal and prayer and just began asking him all the things because I knew I was like, okay, I'm going to need a name. I'm going to need a venue. I'm going to need speakers. And like you mentioned before, every day it was like that. I had that notebook and I was like, okay, God, what are we going to do today? And it just became so cool because I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know what to do, but God did. And then he opened up incredible doors with organizations like Focus on the Family, who is very
Mm,
choosy about who they work with. And they partnered with me to help me produce that first event.
nice.
And yeah. And Mercy House Global, like 2 weeks before, I didn't even have any idea that God had Kristen Welch coming to speak. And so it was really just a God thing
Mhm.
that worked out. And we were able to then help support Mercy House Global. And now at every event, we have a different nonprofit that we partner with
Nice.
to do different things to help spread the word about what the work that they're doing and to help support their mission and vision.
So great. So great. Um, so do you have any little story about a podcast that was maybe your favorite or your hardest or the most shocking or anything like that? I'm putting you totally on the spot.
I know. Okay, so, yeah, one of the things I'll just tell you what I love, okay?
Okay.
So, what I love about podcasting is that I get to work with so many incredible people. I've had the opportunity to interview just so many people. It's just been that to me has been an amazing experience. But where I have the most fun is once a year, I bring my husband on the podcast and we talk about all kinds of things. And he just always surprises me when he gets behind the mic, but it's so fun. So I'll give you an example. So one podcast, I've had the Harmon brothers on my podcast. So I've had Neil on my show. I've had the other brothers. So the Harmon brothers, if you don't know them, they are the brothers behind Angel Studios, and they're also behind the advertising agency Harmon Brothers. And so some of the crazy commercials you may have seen for like Purple Mattress or Poopery, like they're the genius behind that. But then Angel Studios is the one who they have produced The Chosen. Now they've got a series called The Tuttle Twins. They just received $47 million from Elon Musk
Wow.
to like redo, to basically challenge Hollywood. So I love the work
Mhm.
that they're doing and the fact, that I am able to sit down with these guys and talk to them about their mission and vision. It's really cool. And then just to see how, God has all the resources and he can use anybody to do anything, but it's just really
Yeah.
neat to see what he's doing with them and their obedience. So,
Yeah, I love that too. I love connecting and interacting with all the different people and hearing what God's doing in their lives and through their lives, and even picking their brains about strategies and helpful things to make life be more enjoyable, I guess. But you said something about the curiosity and that feeling you get when there's a new idea, a new big project like that. There are seasons to run, there are seasons to walk, and there are seasons to rest. But I
yes.
also think there are seasons to like fly. And sometimes I think I feel like I'm sitting on the back of a rocket ship and I'm just hanging on for dear life as God takes me somewhere new that I don't know anything about. I'm totally out of my sphere. I can't hardly breathe. And it's just all faith and all just following Jesus and letting him do it all through me. And I love that. And I think a lot of times before I go live on a show or on a platform or releasing a book on a summit like this. And those are times when dependence on God is so important,
So
to just not be going and just saying my own thing or doing my own thing, but letting Him speak through me. And I love the privilege of partnering with God. I love what you're doing in the world, Misty. Spark Media, so cool. So excited personally to be part of your group and to be benefiting from that. So I thank you so much for just listening to Jesus and doing what he asked you to do with so much grace.
thank you so much. I love what you said. Every time before I do a podcast interview, I consecrate that time to the Lord. I ask Him to bring to mind the things that I need to ask or what the person needs to say because He knows who's on the other side of the microphone. And I really consider that like a holy ground space. We have the opportunity to speak into people's lives. And so we just want to steward that well. And we want to say the things that He wants us to say so
Yeah.
that we are encouraging people with the things that they need to hear.
Amen. A word for the moment. Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much. You guys want to totally go check out Spark. It's sparkmedia.ventures is the one I have.
Yes.
Is that the best one?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Sparkmedia.ventures, and you'll find out all about the free stuff there as well as the paid membership that you can get involved with. The upcoming conference is right there on a banner across the top. You cannot miss it. Be sure to participate in that if you want to actually get to know some other podcasters and some other people in media. And thank you so much for being here and for being part of this summit, Misty. God bless.
Thank you.